Video number 147, part B. We got stuck right over here. We were talking about how we don't need a calculator for this part here where we're using the unit circle. We got sine 90 is 1, cosine 90 is 0, and that's just because of the alphabetical order. Alright, that's how that works out. Now over here, sine of 0 would be 1, because it's, excuse me, sine of 0 is 0. It goes cosine, comma, sine, alphabetical order. So sine 0, 0, cosine, I should say, cosine of 0 is 1. Okay. Then over here, where's this? This is the point negative 1, 0, cosine, comma, sine. So therefore what? Cosine of 180 is negative 1. And then sine of 180 is 0. Okay, down here, this is 0, negative 1, cosine, comma, sine. What is this? 270. So cosine of 270 is 0. And sine of 270 is negative 1. Now this leads us to figuring out tangent. And we thought about tangent last time as being sine over cosine. So we can make that leap of faith in using trig rather than the geometry. So let's take a look here. Tangent of 0 degrees, or tangent of 360 or 720, would be sine over cosine, which would be 0 divided by 1, which is 0. Alright? What does that mean about cotangent 0? Just to throw that out there. Instead of it being 0 over 1, it'd be 1 over 0, which would be what? Undefined. Okay? Alright, let's throw this out here. Let's take a look at tangent. Tangent of 90 is sine over cosine, 1 over 0, undefined. Alright? And then over here, tangent. Tangent of 180, which would be 0 over negative 1, which is 0. And then down here, tangent 270, which would be sine over cosine, negative 1 over 0, which is undefined. Then, what we would do is, when we're referring to this problem, we would then use the reference angle of 270. So yeah, 0, negative 7 would have the same reference angle as 0, negative 1. So then we would go through and answer all the questions. Sine 270 is cosine, comma, sine, negative 1. Cosine is 0. Tangent is sine over cosine, which is undefined. Okay? Then cosecant is just simply the inverse of negative 1, or the reciprocal of negative 1, because remember what sine is. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. Cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. What's the reciprocal of negative 1? Negative 1. What's the reciprocal of 0? Right? Now what is 0? It's technically 0 over 1 or 0 over some number. So therefore secant would be the reciprocal, which would put what? 0 in the denominator. Therefore undefined. Okay? Secant of, these are all 270s, by the way. Cosine 270, tangent 270, cotangent of 270, and cosecant of 270. That's what this reference angle puts us at. Okay? And then of course cotangent of 270 would give us, instead of it being sine over cosine, it would be cosine over sine, so it would be 0 over 1, which would be then 0. Or in other words, the reciprocal of undefined, which is 0. Okay, so there's your 6 trig values at these 6 basic trig functions. Alright, next one, negative 5, 0. Well, that's putting us at a reference angle of 180. So we're doing sine 180, cosine 180. Everything we're doing is with 180 degrees here. Of course, we could also think of it in radians as pi. So secant 180 or secant of pi, cotangent of 180 or cotangent of pi. Alright. So this puts us on. By the way, think about this. We've already pointed out that tangent is definitely sine over cosine. What's cotangent? Cosine over sine. So you can start to see that there's definitely different ways to think about the many various trig functions. That's why there's going to be so many trig identities that we're going to be using. Sine 180, well, what's the alphabetical order? cosine, comma, sine. What is this point? Negative 1, comma, 0. So sine 180 is 0. Cosine 180 is negative 1. Tangent, therefore, is 0. Because it's 0 divided by negative 1. Sine over cosine. Cosecant would be the inverse of 0, which is undefined. The secant of negative 1 would be the inverse of negative 1, which is what? Negative 1. Okay? And then the cotangent's inverse of 0, so you'd have the inverse of 0, which is undefined. Alright? So, there you have it. Any questions or concerns, please send me an email. And of course, good times.